three ball too well. They are shooting the two ball, which I don't even know if people typically say that because no one shoots 2-pointers anymore, but they are shooting the two ball at a ridiculous rate. Will Z Stats for Kings on SI has a great breakdown. You can go and check that out during one of the breaks at SI.com. And he talks about how everybody is discussing the Kings and their lack of 3-point shooting, but nobody is talking enough about their 2-point shooting and how efficient it has been. Here are some of the stats that he brings up. Domantas Sabonis has the fourth highest 2-point percentage in the league right now at 68.4%. And he has a breakdown of the 2-pointers and the areas of the 2-pointers. And this is pretty ridiculous stuff here. In the restricted area, they are shooting 72.6%. That's fourth. And it's not like they still got JaVale McGee or prime JaVale McGee. They don't got a Skywalker in there throwing down dunks all the time. All right. So they're shooting 72.6% from the restricted area. They're shooting 55, which is good for fourth in that area. They're shooting 55% from the floater area, which is good for first. And from the mid-range, they're shooting 48.9%, which is good for third in the league. So they're fourth, first, and third in all areas of the restricted area of the mid-range, or just the 2-point area in general. Between Domantas Sabonis, this is what Will Z writes, between Domantas Sabonis, De'Aaron Fox, and DeRozan, the Kings have an elite finisher on all three levels inside. Sabonis at the rim, Fox in the floater area, and DeMar DeRozan in the mid-range. 3-point shooting will come and go throughout a season, as we've seen so far with the Kings. However, elite 2-point shooting is more sustainable throughout 82 games. And I will go on to say that I think it's more sustainable in the playoffs as well. They're playing more playoff type basketball. Now, you're not going to see, or we haven't seen a lot of games like last game where you blew a team out of the water. That Suns team was not the Suns team that they want other teams to see moving forward, especially when it gets to the playoffs. But to me, it's just all about having a counterpunch. And the Kings had not had that counterpunch these last couple seasons. If the three wasn't working, give it to Domas, shoulder, shoulder, shoulder. Let me pump fake 18 times. Maybe I'll get you, and we can get a 2-pointer that way. Or De'Aaron, come save us and shoot a mid-range, something like that. So they now have a counterpunch. The problem is they kind of lost their right hook, right? Their 3-point shooting. So if you can get that back, even if it doesn't have as much mustard as it has in the past, very similar to Mike Tyson, what we're going to see tonight, can you still get it done? And I think you can. So a lot of people throughout the time that I've been here, and it's not just Kings fans, it's a lot of basketball fans. That's why there are questions about the viewership and the amount of people that want to watch a Chuck Fest, as I call it, as a bunch of 3-pointers just go up. And not everybody is Steph Curry or prime Klay Thompson, so they're not shooting it at the same clip as the Boston Celtics and teams like that. So it's just not great basketball. I asked the question to the Kings fans out there, are you okay with the new version of this? A lot of you were all over. Too many 3-pointers, too many 3-pointers. Well, now you've seen the other side, and you've seen it at an elite level. Is this what you thought it would look like? Is there anybody that's going to be bold enough to say, hey, Allen, I almost said, hey, Al. You're not talking to Royale right now.
Hey, Mr. Al.
Hey, Mr. Al. Hey, Royale. I was one of those people that said the Kings are shooting too many threes. Now I look at where they're at, and they're 7-5, not in a bad spot, on track to be playing around with that 6 through 10 again. Now I look at what they've been doing, and yeah, maybe they need to shoot a little bit more from the 3-point line. Or it's no, I like what I'm seeing. Let's not forget, they shot 53% from 3 a couple nights ago. That wasn't on high volume either.
Nope.
So is that the best version of the Kings? You're not going to shoot 53% every single night. So maybe that volume needs to go up. Mike Brown, when they shot 11%, what was that last week? Mike Brown said they didn't shoot enough threes. That's what it was.
They shot 26 in that game.
They got a little gun shy once they started missing. So do you like what you're seeing from the Kings? Do you think that it could be better in some aspects? Should they shoot the three ball more? Because that first game against the Timberwolves, it's not as if Anthony Edwards was particularly efficient. Okay, to put it nicely, he was nowhere near that. And they got that W because everybody was just chucking threes. And the Kings didn't take enough or make enough. So there are going to be games where 3 is worth more than 2, and there will be games where 2 is worth more than 3. I'd argue if you are going to be the team where it's 2 is worth more than 3, that defense better be legit. That 3-point defense better be legit.
So it's interesting because I think your underlying point is correct. As long as you're great at something, then you're going to be fine. Mm-hmm. And the Kings are great at mid-range 2-point shooting and Domantas Sabonis getting that little 11-foot elbow jumper and getting to the rim and Sabonis has been physically dominating some of these centers that they played this year. So as long as you're great at something, then your offense is going to be fine. Where teams get into a rut is, okay, our 2-pointers aren't going, we're not getting to the rim, we're not getting fouls. Now we're going to turn to the 3-point line, and the 3-point line's betraying us, and all of a sudden you have a bad offense and you don't have answers, right? So as long as you're great at something, you're going to be fine. And it's what Mike Brown says after every game is that we need to take more 3-pointers. And I work the game broadcast here at the station a lot, and during one of the pregame shows, an assistant coach was talking to G-Man. I can't remember if it was Luke Laux or Jimmy Alapag. It was one of those assistant coaches, and he was talking about we want to be around 32 to 35 3-pointers a game. If we can get somewhere in that number of attempts, then we're happy because that means we're averaging 100 possessions a game. If we take 60 shots from 2-point, 35 from 3, and we're getting to the line 20 times a game, our offense is going to be excellent because of DeRozan and Sabonis and all the 3-point shooters that they have, the spray threes to Keegan, the Herter, Keon Ellis, McLaughlin, Doug McDermott. They have 3-point shooters spread out across the floor. So I think that the bigger thing more than the misses is they're getting gun shy from 3 and just going to the 2-pointer all the time, which is, like we talked about, 3-point shooting will come and go. The Kings are the best 2-point shooting team in the league right now at a not historic rate, but the best the league has seen in a couple years.
Yes.
That's going to come down to earth at some point.
And you better, and if you're going to continue to go that route, you better defend the 3-ball. Again, the Kings are 23rd in 3-point attempts per game, sitting at 33.6. All right, we continue the conversation. Also going to get into some NFL, as NFL is king, and there are some big games happening this weekend. There was a big game last night, so we take a trip around the NFL. More of your calls, more of your texts, more of your Sac Chat. Allen Stiles, Sactown Sports. About to get into some around the NFL. Got some texts want to read off here at the bottom of the hour. Got the Kings Timberwolves preview coming up at 12 o'clock as well at the top of the hour. From the 530, some of the more frustrating losses last year were games against teams like the Heat and the Knicks. They just couldn't hang with that style of ball, kind of that bully ball. I feel like this year they can and also run the floor with the best. I like what I see so far. They have a lot of room to improve still. That is from Doug. That's a good point, Doug. They can still run and get it done that way. We want to see more of that. But yeah, that ugly, muck it up style of basketball from the Knicks, and they beat the Heat this season, first time in 6 years. I think they won in Miami. So that's a good point, Doug. We would like to see more from the run and gun style, but you're right. They do have more. They're more dynamic this season. They're more flexible this season. They were a bit. You ever have a meal? I was watching Hell's Kitchen last night. The meal was a bit one note. Okay, it didn't have a different. It had one texture. You got to add in different textures. There's no crispy. There's just salty. There's no sweet. This season, they got it all working. 916-339-1140. We have some numbers on the Kings' opponent 3-point percentage last season and this season. It's not great. But Brandon's always great whenever he calls in, and Brandon wants to be part of the conversation. What's up, Brandon? You're on with Allen Stiles. Happy Friday.
What you
got?
Doing?
Good, man. Good.
Happy Friday. I did want to say I'm loving the balance this year, and this is kind of why. So I watched this video. It was from DeRozan on some podcast, and he was talking about how he studied Wizards Michael Jordan, and he really broke down the way, even without all the athletic ability, and as he was aging, he could still get a bucket all the time because he just mastered the mid-range, putting his back to the player. And I like that because in the playoffs, or even say a play-in game, it seems like those three-point open looks get tougher, defenses get tighter. And when you have a guy like DeRozan, who no matter how good a defense you're playing, he's mastered that mid-range, I think it breaks defenses down. It just breaks their will. So you get into a game where, you know, it's close and it's tight and you need a couple baskets towards the end of the game to close it. It's so much more reliable having guys like DeRozan and the balance of the two-point shot to go to in tough circumstances like that. So I'm a big fan of it. I do like how we still have the run and gun option, and I think the three-point attempts will start to go in more and more. But I got to say, I think everything is going better than expected with the DeRozan experiment.
Yeah, I agree, Brandon. Thanks for the call. Enjoy your weekend whenever that starts for you. I will say this. The ability to run and gun, like we saw the Kings against the Suns, the reason you do like that, very similar, you know, I'm going to take it to baseball, the grand slam. I know a lot of you out there play softball. I know you can only hit so many home runs. I made the mistake. I accidentally hit a home run when nobody was on base and I'm rounding the bases, bat flipping, and the rest of the team is mad at me because you can only hit so many. So you load the bases up to hit the grand salami. But the reason that you like the run and gun option is because you could get hot the same way you could hit a bunch of homers, and you just give everyone that breathing room, and then you can rest the guys. What you're saying is completely true. That's what we've seen. That's why every game has been close, and that's why these minutes have been insane. So you still need to take a good amount of threes, because if you do get hot, maybe you just blow a team out of the water and you don't have to play Domantas Sabonis 40 minutes. The 2 point, it's I don't want to say low risk, low reward, but because I don't think it's a low reward, but it prevents you, especially when I read these 3-point opposition numbers, it prevents you from getting that large gap. So Mike Brown doesn't feel comfortable putting Jordan McLaughlin in. He doesn't feel comfortable putting Dougie McBuckets in. If you can get hot from three, that's a different situation, because now we're up 15 because Keegan Murray is 5 of 7. Kevin Huerter is 4 of 6. So now let's see if our bench can keep that rolling. This grind, the grinding conversation and the grinding style of basketball that we like what we're seeing from the Kings is great when it comes playoff time, when you're not worried about minutes anyway. But throughout the course of 82 games, that's a lot of wear and tear.
Yeah, because when the playoffs roll around, you do what you are great at more often.
Right.
You go back to the same well over and over. Your rotation's shortened. You run the same plays over and over again. You go back to the things that you do well. That was the case with the Kings against the Warriors 2 years ago, where they won those first games of the series by shooting the lights out. They had pace, tons of possessions, shot the lights out, and their three-point shooting outlasted the Warriors' three-point shooting. Now, as the series went along, they didn't hit as many of those shots, and of course, Game 7, you have the offensive rebounds and everything like that. But when the Kings were winning playoff games 2 years ago, that was the formula. That was the formula for Boston last year. They ran the offense that they had been crafting over the entire season deeper into the playoffs. And you're going to go to those defensive numbers in a second as well from the Kings defending the three-point line. But last year, the problem was, and 2 years ago, the Kings were not a good defensive team. They were one of the worst defensive teams that wasn't like a tanking team that was just terrible at everything. Like, among the contenders, they were really bad at defense. That's not the case this year. They actually are top 10 in defensive rating right now, but how they're getting to that top 10 rating might not be the way that you expect.
All right. We do have those Kings opposition 3-point 3-point percentage numbers. We're going to get to that during the Kings Timberwolves preview. First, we know it's the weekend, which means it's almost time for some NFL football. So we're going to go around the NFL. Oh, a new one. Okay. All right, Kyle.
All right. Want me to start it off here?
Let's do it.
All right. So our first story from around the NFL. Did you see what our buddy Ashton Jeanty, the star Heisman Trophy candidate at Boise State, said?
And I don't know why you're smirking like that.
Because it's my favorite quote. So Ashton Jeanty is going to be a first-round pick in the NFL this year. Phenomenon in college football. If you're going to watch any college football game this weekend, watch Boise State. Ashton Jeanty was asked a little while ago about who he might want to play for in the NFL, and he had a funny response. The Arizona Cardinals. Because, quote, I could get down with Kyler. We're going to be the shortest backfield in the NFL.
Yes.
What is the thing you call it? The Zont Squad?
Yes, it will be the Zont Squad. Ashton Jeanty standing at 5'9", Kyler 5'10". A lot of people were saying, I don't even think Kyler's 5'10". They did this not too long ago with the Cardinals because Greg Dortch isn't tall. They had somebody else, but they had 3 receivers that were all under 6 foot.
They had Rondale Moore last year.
That's right.
Who was also, I think, 6 foot tall.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the Cardinals should be your favorite team, Styles, because
they are.
Not only are they the Zont Squad, they're averaging 30 points a game over the last 3 games. So,
there you go.
Your Zont Squad wants Ashton Jeanty. They're not going to draft him because they just took Trey Benson early in the draft last year, but Ashton Jeanty wants to play with his Zont King, Kyler Murray.
Well, they're running James Conner into the ground, so it doesn't seem like...
You know what? At this point with James Conner, I'm just looking at it as he's on my fantasy team. I'm just like, enjoy the ride as long as it goes. Like, he should have flamed out 2 years ago. He's in like year 8.
Pittsburgh didn't even want him.
Yeah.
And he looks maybe better than he did in Pittsburgh.
Other than that one really good season he had in Pittsburgh when Le'Veon Bell was holding out, he's had a career revitalization in Arizona. But they're going to ride him until the wheels fall off. Why
not?
They should have 2 years ago.
All right, what's next?
All right, so Trevor Lawrence, the quarterback for the Jacksonville Jaguars, he's got a major shoulder injury. He was ruled out earlier this week, and Shad Khan, the owner of the Jaguars, said before the season started this was the best roster the Jaguars have had in 25 years, and it's not going great for Jacksonville right now. So I wanted to ask you this, Mr. Styles, as someone who is on board with the Raiders tanking and going for Shadur Sanders and all that junk. The Jaguars currently have the number 1 pick in the NFL draft right now. They're 2-8, worst team in the league. Would you just sit Trevor Lawrence the rest of the season at this point? He's obviously hurt.
And just decide to try to move him?
Well, they don't have to move him or not, but just saying we're just going to punt completely on this season.
It gives them more flexibility moving forward. They probably move off of Doug Peterson. And, I mean, here's the question. Trevor Lawrence is on that ridiculous contract, which wasn't ridiculous. I don't think when he signed it, they did the same thing with Jordan Love. But who has more value, Trevor Lawrence or Bryce Young? I guess maybe Bryce Young simply because he's on a rookie deal.
No, Trevor Lawrence, I think, has more value, but no one can trade for Trevor Lawrence right now because the contract is just too giant.
Well, that's what I'm saying, right? If you're a team, if people are calling about Bryce Young.
I mean, you would get more value for Trevor Lawrence. I mean, Trevor Lawrence, as much as people are dunking on Trevor Lawrence, I understood why he got that contract. You don't have to be the best quarterback in the NFL. You just have to be good enough.
And good at the right time as well. Went to the playoffs and people said, hey, we might have something here. All right, Kyle, what's next?
The Jaguars are going to get pummeled by Detroit this weekend.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. We're not going to when we do our picks at the end of the game, that will be a quickie.
Yes. And then my beloved Kansas City Chiefs are taking on Buffalo this weekend. Buffalo's favored, actually, in this game. So I just wanted to check in with you as our football aficionado here. Kansas City obviously owns them in the playoffs. Mahomes has 3 times knocked Josh Allen out of the playoffs, but Buffalo's won the last 3 regular season games between Kansas City and Buffalo. So Buffalo's favored. I just wanted your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I have my hot take on this has been deep down, Andy Reid doesn't want the Chiefs to lose, but he wouldn't mind them losing. I mean, you go into the playoffs undefeated, that's going to add a whole new layer. Some of the teams that they face, they got the Bills is another big one, and then they have the Texans, I believe, as well. I think that Andy Reid wants to win this game, but I don't think he wants the headache that he knows is going to come with being undefeated, and I think he gets his wish. I think the Bills take care of business.
Yes, Kansas City will be favored in every game the rest of the season outside of this one. They have some tough teams, but no juggernauts left on the schedule. So if they're going to lose any game, this is the one they're going to lose, and Buffalo's beat them 3 in a row in the regular season, even though one of them was because Kadarius Toney lined up offsides.
Got to check in. I think Amari Cooper might play. He hasn't played the last couple games.
He might, but Dalton Kincaid is out.
Dawson Knox. I thought Dawson Knox was going to be a dude for a while.
I mean, he was.
He was for a hot second.
They just needed a better dude.
That's right, as teams will typically do. On the other side, back into some Kings talk. We preview the Kings, Timberwolves, and I give you those pretty interesting opposition 3-point percentage numbers. Allen Stiles, Sactown Sports.